On behalf of the Society of Certified Senior Advisors, thanks for joining us for this month's CSA webinar on networking, building a trusted professional network. We have a great presentation for you today. Joining us is Judy Ruff. Judy is a CSA and is also the Senior Director of Strategic Alliances for us here at the Society of Certified Senior Advisors. In a nutshell, she develops mutually beneficial relationships with corporations, professionals, associations, nonprofit organizations, colleges, universities, gerontology programs, as well as subject matter experts and individuals. Judy also owned a senior move management and professional organizing business in Arizona for 7 years and a record and document management business. Both companies served senior clientele. Judy's other areas of expertise are in small business coaching, business best practices, strategic networking, network and resource development, in-depth vetting of professionals, speaking locally and nationally, and program and education development for professionals who serve the older adult market. Thanks for joining us today, Judy.
Thank you so much, Travis, and welcome everybody to this webinar. First, I want to start by saying that what we're about to go through is a strategy. It is a particular style of doing this, but I want you to understand this is not a prescription. I'm not saying that everyone should do this. You should do what's comfortable for you. But recognize that today, older adults and their families, in particular their adult children, if they're shopping for services or professionals, are very leery of being exploited. So the fear of exploitation really matters in serving the older adult clientele. So we want to think about that as I'm going through this webinar with you and try to look at it with different eyes. So here we go, and first of all, I want to start with how I typically hate networking. And what I mean by that is, when you're looking at the time spent on traditional networking and networking events, are you considering it a waste of time? And what I mean by that is, for the amount of time that you put into it, what is the return on investment? Are you making money for your business or really benefiting your network by doing it in that style? So are the connections really meaningful and important to you in your network? A lot of networking organizations have outreach professionals that businesses are sending, so you aren't necessarily talking to the specific decision makers. And I don't know about you, but the art of small talk isn't always something that I enjoy doing, and a lot of people don't. Some people are very, very good at it though. So when the surface level introductions and acquaintance level of relationships, or it really isn't a relationship, it's really this just basic connection starts, is it really this type of connection that we need for our networks? And when you look at certain salespeople, they may have forced quotas that they just need to fill to say that they've connected with X number of people. But I think one of the big problems that a lot of people have in their networking is, and this is a major point, and I want to stress this, is that they do not follow up, or they don't follow up enough. So, is the feeling that, oh, I have to go, I have to do this, I should do this, and I really don't want to, my heart isn't in it. And if you're not feeling passionate about something, that will resonate with others. So when we look at typical types of connecting that we have today, of course, we're talking about networking events, face-to-face events. But of course, the use today of the internet with LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter and others are really significant in how we connect with people. I found that Twitter is an excellent resource where sometimes with LinkedIn, the rules are you're not supposed to connect unless you know the individual. Twitter, many times you can almost get in through the back door, so to speak, by engaging with a particular person or company. There's always the typical business card exchange, which happens whenever we meet face-to-face, networking events or otherwise, conferences, things like that. And then just by happenstance, if we run into somebody and find that they do something of great interest to us. Of course, friend of a friend, other types of introductions and referrals are the way we consider what we consider our typical types of connecting. But in unnetworking, we want to look at it more as it is an atypical process. This is where you're going to engage in very meaningful connections, and it is much more, it's a very deep and growing relationship of like-minded individuals sharing best practices and in a way that is a trusted environment. You want to make sure that you're sharing things with someone that you feel you can trust. So trust is a big factor. You want to know that the individuals that are in your network think the way you do, in the sense that is education important to them. Those of you here on the webinar are continuing your education, and as a CSA of an accredited certification, you have to continue your education. Are the other people in your network obligated to do the same or have the desire to do the same? And I think that's pretty important to know. So you do not want to be disconnected, left out of the pack. And I think, what I want to say here too about continuing to educate ourselves, to stay up with the trends. If you're finding individuals who have maintained old knowledge and are functioning based on old styles of doing business or practices in working with older adults, this is demonstrating how perishable knowledge can be and how important it is to stay up on things, stay current, know what's happening not only in your industry but others. So you don't want to be this guy that's totally disconnected, not only from the group but from information that is constantly flowing. So in order to build a network and follow in this unnetworking style, this is all about relationships, as I said. So how do you do that? And what I want to do is give you the tools to, make believe you had to relocate to another city, you had absolutely no connections whatsoever, and I'm going to show you how you can build a network without getting referrals from other people or running into someone per chance. And then even if those things do happen, whether someone's referred, per chance meeting, whatever the circumstances may be, or you seek the individual yourself, they're all going to have to go through a vetting process, which we will get to. So you want to design the optimal network that's best for you. So when you look at the handouts that you were given, there's one that's called the haves and the needs, and we'll get into this a little deeper, but I want you to remember that if you are a for-profit company or a nonprofit, whatever you are, and you're staying in your silo, so in other words, your network is made up of other for-profit companies or other nonprofits or government, but not the expanse. So when you think about the private sector, public sector, government agencies, area agencies on aging, gerontology programs or other academic programs, other professional associations that, so you may be in one industry, but you work very heavily in another, with another industry, and you want them in your network, you may want to also be connected with their professional association to some degree. So we want to literally make a list, and I'd like you to think, and with that handout that I gave that shows the haves and the needs, I want you to think very carefully about who do you currently have in your network. Now the list I gave you is pretty generic. There are some specific jobs, so to speak, but a lot of them are general industries. So think out of the box, think what you have, and put them down. And when you list what you have, only list those that you're really thrilled with. So if you feel that you need to upgrade or replace, we want to keep that for the needs column. So you're going to then, once you've established what you have, really look thoroughly at what has not been checked off and see what is it that you need. And when you're determining what you need for your network, you want to make sure that you have more than one, minimally two, of each type of professional. So you're going to review this list, and when you don't have connections, I want you to think of two things. If you are in specific networking groups, you might be a leaders network, a CSA leaders network, it might be some type of senior coalition group in your area. Think about who you have in your professional network, but then the groups that you go to, who's missing? What industries are not present that you wish were present? And that's a great opportunity to invite them as speakers or interact somehow, or just invite others into these different groups so that you have the opportunity to get to know them better. So when you look at what your holes are and what you're missing, obviously what we're going to talk about has a time factor in it. It takes a little time to establish. So you want to really consider, what do you desperately need first? So once you've got this list, I want you to look at it and say, have I gone beyond the customary? So I'll give an example. If you're in finance and your list is comprised of other finance people, insurance people, and estate people, that's not a comprehensive list. People pass away, so the funeral industry is important. People need changes in housing, so the transition industries are important. People need to have help in their homes. In-home care companies are important. So the bigger your network, the better you become. The better you become as a professional, and you become this go-to resource. Now, I'm not saying you give away this list, but it will be recognized very quickly how, as a CSA or as an individual working with older adults, how quickly you can help them in a crisis. We don't want to have to go search for a particular type of professional in a crisis. We want to already have them and have them vetted in our network. So this is really, really important. So add those extras to your list. They might not be the ones you're going to go through first, but at least down the line, you want to have that pretty expansive list. So building this network, as I said earlier, trust is a key component to it. So how do you make a network of trusted professionals? And how do you demonstrate that to your clientele that you have gone over and above? So as a CSA, you've already have a foundation of vetting. We have background checked you, and you've passed that background check. You've demonstrated that you've earned this business credential, merging business and aging together, and you showed the competencies in all of the areas that are covered in the Working with Older Adults program. So, all right, that's a vetting. You passed a very rigorous exam to demonstrate that you know those competencies. You've passed an ethics exam. You've disclosed information about yourself to state that you are a trustworthy professional. So that is a level of vetting. But now we still don't know, do you do a good job or not in the work that you do? So how are we going to go deeper? And that's what you want to be asking about others who are in your network. So how do you find that best person for each job? And when I'm talking about people, I'm generalizing here because I also mean resources. There are great government resources. There are resources in specific cities targeted to older adults or targeted to you as a business person. So resources can be broad, not only people in all of those different areas that I talked about before, for-profit, nonprofit, government, academia, but also looking at the resources that are online, things that really help you and your client to, you do a better job and your client feel like, wow, this person has guided me in such a way that I'm not frustrated. I don't feel that I haven't been heard. I'm not getting to the right source. You're in control now of these. So a vetting process to determine are these all good resources needs a vetting standard. And so you are the person who determines what that vetting standard will be. So you have to set your own standard first before you can proceed. And I just threw up some things here where these are just some examples. By no means does anybody have to use this or anything close to this. You have to set a standard that works within your industry and possibly in the industries of the individuals. Maybe the standard needs to be altered based on other industries. For instance, certain industries automatically have background checks. Not all do. But I want to say something that is a real trend in our business economy, the business environment today. The sharing and the gig economy is huge. These are companies like Uber and Lyft and so many others that, doing things in a very different way than from traditional business. And in order for them to have any degree of success, background checks have become so vitally important. So when you're talking about yourself as a CSA to potential clients, stress the background check. Make sure they understand that is a part of you as a CSA and that is done every 3 years. So we're not just letting it ride. You do it once and then it isn't done anymore. So you really have elevated your own standard, right, of where you are in the vetting realm. So in my opinion, and as I've put on this slide here, I think everyone needs the online presence. If you're in business and you don't have a LinkedIn profile and it isn't complete, they call it all-star level, and you don't have a headshot, or your headshot isn't appropriate for the type of business you're in, these are things that you need to address. You have no idea how much business you are losing, because if there's, let's just say, an adult child is shopping for services for their parent who lives in another state. They don't have time to meet with you in person. They're going to shop first online, and they're going to look at a few things. They're going to look at your LinkedIn profile or any other social media you may have. They'll look at your website if you have it, and probably just your homepage, About Us, and your list of services. This can be done in a matter of a minute to 2 minutes. If you're not impressing them quickly, they'll move on and they'll wait till they find somebody who does impress them. So really consider taking a hard look at those things. I put here must be in business a minimum of 3 years, and the reason I put more than 1 year is because it's not to say that somebody in business for 1 year isn't terrific, and it's not to say that you wouldn't make exceptions to your rule, but maybe you'll draw people into your network for the year and the 2-year mark, and you get to know them better and better and better. And once you get to the 3-year mark, then you feel very comfortable and readily refer. Or you may feel comfortable sooner. Again, this is just a standard to give you a guide. One other piece is how many direct service workers have passed a criminal background check. So many times your network is comprised of owner to owner. But then when you refer, the owner isn't necessarily the one who's going to have contact with your older adult client. So are you protecting that client of yours, and are you making sure that everything has been done and you've been as transparent as possible about ensuring that they're with the best? Ask for another company's certificate of insurance made out to your company. Their insurance company will do that and send it to you. You want to know that this company is properly covered, and everything that shows legitimacy is great. I've also put in here must be a senior-friendly business, and I have a checklist, and I don't think we got that on to the handouts, but we can certainly send that out later. So I'm going to use the example of a geriatric care manager as, let's make believe that's what's missing from your network. Personally, I think that a geriatric care manager who coincidentally they did a rebranding is now called an aging life care manager. I think that that is a great resource for everyone who works with older adults. They typically do a very good job of assessment. So when you are trying to figure out what direction and what resources a particular client needs, maybe beyond whatever your area of expertise is, this might be a great person to bring in. So the way I begin making believe that I have no referral, I have no help whatsoever, right? I'm going to begin with the internet. So I'm going to go to their professional association. I'm going to check it out. I want to understand the definition of the job and then the scope of work that a geriatric care manager performs. And then I want to know what are the credentials for geriatric care managers. And then I will use the locator to find individuals in my specific area. So we're actually going to do this. So here is what we just talked about. So what is a geriatric care manager? So I'm going to go to this, to their website, and they do such a good job of clearly defining what a aging life care manager is. They talk about the different areas that they're involved in, and that's crystal clear. And here you go. What is an aging life care professional? You couldn't ask for a better web situation. So the next thing I want to know is what credentials do they have? So when you come down here, they're talking about the requirements of the different credentials. Oops, sorry about that. And here we've got a list of the different types of levels. They happen to have different levels of certification. So they've got a base level of an associate, then they have a higher level of a professional. That is a certification. And then they go higher with an advanced professional. And so that's the highest level of certification. So when you then, this is their general homepage, but now you want to say, okay, in my vetting standard, I want to think about this. So they've got 3 levels of geriatric care manager, and they are 1 without certification, 2 with certification, a lower level and a higher level certification. So what do I want for my network? Well, maybe I don't want just the higher level. Maybe I also want both levels of certification, but I decide I don't want to go with the person who doesn't have any level of certification. So on their website, I can put in, so this is their locator, and most professional associations will have these locators. So I put in a zip code, and then I can select, do I want this advanced professional, the professional, the associate? So I'm going to say I'll take both, these 2 higher levels that carry the certification. And I'm going to go within 25 miles of the zip code I put in, and we'll do a search. So it's still thinking. There we go. So now it's popped up all the people who hold those levels, and I can go very quickly. I can go to their websites, and on their websites they almost all have their Facebook, their LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever. I can quickly click on those, and I can decide which of these individuals do I feel most comfortable with. But now remind you, I'm not saying I'm going to refer any of these individuals. So now I've decided, I've picked a few, and I've decided that I want to go and talk to them. But I've looked at the scope of work and I've looked at their definition of what they do, but I could use a little help. And here they've given me a lot of help on this website. They're actually giving me consumer questions to ask when hiring a geriatric care manager. This can't be any easier. Now, this isn't always this easy. Every website isn't designed this way, but even if you just Google questions to ask when hiring a financial advisor, questions to ask when hiring an in-home care company, things like that, you will be thrilled with all the things that come up very, very quickly. So now you know quite a bit about geriatric care managers, and you can do this in probably 15 minutes. So I've selected, let's say I've selected 2 different individuals that I think would work based on everything I've seen so far. Now I'm going and I'm checking their LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. I'm going to see if there's anything about them on Yelp. I will take what's said on Yelp with a grain of salt, though. Don't, you have to give people credit. Sometimes there are not nice people that say things that aren't necessarily true. So you have to weigh everything. Again, I'm going to look at their home, about, and services pages on their website. But then I'm going to take their company name and their name, if there was a nickname or anything like that, and I'm going to start adding some pretty bad words after those names, accused of, convicted of, bankruptcy, anything I can think of to bring up in the Google search any problems. Let's assume nothing has come up. If something has come up, I'm going to look at it, I'm going to read it, and make a decision if I want to go ahead and proceed with that individual or not. So I'm going to check their credentials against the industry standard. That's what I did in my vetting standard. I determined that I wanted those 2 higher levels. So now, based on all my feelings, my gut feel about everything I've researched on the internet and on the locator about them, I'm going to determine if I'm going to go to the next level. So anybody that I don't feel comfortable with for whatever reason, I don't have to have a good reason. If I just don't feel comfortable, I discard. But the next thing is vitally important, and I want to encourage people not to communicate electronically on your initial communication. Pick up the phone. Now, this method that I'm going to go through with you comes completely from a place of giving. This is, you are not going to connect with these people and say, hello, my name is so-and-so, I'm a senior move manager, I want to tell you all about my business and how I can help you and da-da-da-da-da. No, I am building a network of the highest level of professionals in my area, and I have begun vetting you, and you come up as the top, and I would love to have the opportunity to meet with you in person. Who isn't going to say yes to that? I mean, this is something that you're saying, I want you in my network so I can have you as a fabulous resource for the purpose of working together in various ways or referrals or whatever that may be based on how the relationship develops over time. So if you think about it, you've done this research, so you're incredibly knowledgeable for the average person as far as what is their profession, so what is a geriatric care manager, what is the scope of work, what are questions to ask when hiring, like wow, right? You're going to go into that interview with them when you go, and typically if you can go to their place of business, that is the best, because again, you're going to get a sense of what are they about? Is the business chaotic or is it organized and running smoothly? Now, if they don't have a place of business, of course you'll meet at a location that most people in this country seem to pick, which is your local Starbucks. Starbucks makes more money off of networking than probably any company in the United States. So we want to meet in the best circumstances possible. But this face-to-face gives a huge impression. Having lunch with somebody, coffee with someone, sharing a meal with them, I mean, this is really, now you're developing an intimacy. You want to know everything you can about their business. By being so informed, you're making such an incredible impression, but the real impression you're making is about not talking about yourself. Obviously, if they ask you questions about you and your business, you're going to answer them. But you're really there to get to know them. And from that meeting, again, you determine, are you going to go to the next level of vetting with this individual or this company? So if the answer is yes, a very simple way, you can use Outlook as a reminder or other methods, whatever software you use for your reminder system, to set up a touch alert program. With this, you've developed this connection, and if you feel that you're going to proceed with this individual, you really truly want them in your network, you're looking at, over the course of a year, continually keeping your brand in front of them, continuing to deepen the relationship. So you already made the phone call, you've already met them at their place of business. Here are some suggestions. Again, these are suggestions. This is not a prescription about what you have to do. You do what's comfortable for you, or things you may already be doing. Just maybe customize it in a certain way or add to it if you need to. A handwritten thank you note, though, makes an amazing impression, and if it's done within 24 to 48 hours, people just are bowled over. But then once that happens, you want to let time pass, invite them to your place of business, of course unless the conversation has gone in such a way that they're anxious to come and see you. You want to make valuable connections for them, so someone who's already in your network that you think it might mutually benefit both parties, to have them connect. And I'll give you a suggestion here. When you do this, the ultimate professional way of doing it is to contact each individual and get their permission to make the connection, and then state in an email, both of you have given me permission, here's all the contact information for both of you to contact one another, and basically then the ball is in their court. But you've made that connection in order to benefit those two parties. Let's say in the conversations that you've had at your place of business, their place of business, or other phone calls or emails, it's become evident to you, oh, they may have had a little problem or something they talked about in their business that relevant content might help them with, or they just might have an interest, personal or professional, and you could send along possibly an article and say, by the way, I thought this might interest you. Non-invasive. You're not putting your business down their throat constantly over and over and over again. This is relationship driven. This is not hardcore sales driven, but it really is. But it doesn't have that appearance. So then you might just come up with some kind of nice thing that you want to do. You may want them to be a speaker in an organization you're involved in. You may want them to come to something that you're attending, a charity event or a networking event, educational event, something like that. I always sent in my company unholiday cards. I didn't want to be competing with the December crunch, so I actually used November, with Thanksgiving being a thankful time and a thank you for whether people are clients or in a network or what have you, and it stood out. And you can do your own unique type of things. One fun tip that I got from someone that I did one year was I sent a, believe it or not, a Starbucks card, and it was enough for 2 purchases for 2 individuals, and I said, I'd love to meet you for coffee, you buy. And that got a tremendous response. So you can be very creative with things like this, but again, you don't have to be. It's more the idea that every year, in some way, you're going to touch the people that mean a lot to you in your network 7 times. So this isn't just the first year, this is ongoing. Now, maybe it isn't 7, maybe you want to do it less in the next year, or however you want to orchestrate it. The key is you want to keep your brand in front of them, you want to deepen the relationship further and further and further as time progresses. Now, I want to turn this on you. I want you to realize that as you have developed this optimal network and you set a vetting standard, and you made sure that the people in your network were like-minded and great resources for your clients, and you followed up with them and they followed up with you, and it was just really working beautifully for the people you have had that remain as your main resources in your network. But what about you? Vet yourself in exactly the same way I just described. Think about as if you're an adult child shopping for a service for the person they love dearly. Are you showing up correctly? Or is your online presence what it should be? What about the people that work for you and with you, all the key stakeholders in your business? And then when you have vetted yourself and the stakeholders in your business, be transparent about that. Make sure that on your website it's crystal clear that this is the standard that you hold for everybody, yourself and everybody that works with you. So then as a consumer, I know, wow, they really care. They have looked so deeply into these issues that I care about as a consumer. And that is the ticket to getting people to start approaching that trust level and that comfort level with you. So trust. Doing this is going to move that needle for you personally, for your network, and for your business. And I don't think there's a, this is an incredibly valuable commodity. So one thing I have to tell you here, that the bad news is you have to do this unnetworking process for the rest of your life. But the good news is you do have to do it for the rest of your life. But if you're passionate about what you do, this can be exciting. This is something of incredible value to you and to everybody that you work with. This makes it so that you have this incredible network that others don't have. Others don't vet the way they should. It is unfortunately a business practice that is ignored in large part, or what is considered to be vetting is not always deep enough. Now, obviously, how do you feel person to person? These are things that relationships that we develop every day over time, our friends and family. And I want you to think too that this vetting process is actually fantastic for your personal life as well. Do you need to find a particular doctor or hairdresser or whatever that might be? It works for everything. So I want you to know that having this optimal network is an incredibly valuable asset, and all of this makes you and the people in your network, because you have to realize that when a network is filled with this level of professional, that when you go back and forth and you're referring back and forth and you're working together on projects, I mean, this is really key. So to me, your network is your net worth. And if you think about the fact that you have business liability insurance, and that is very important for you, I understand that, but to me, vetting is one of the most important liability insurances you will ever have. So this will take you to a level of protecting your reputation, protecting your business's reputation, and making sure that you're doing everything possible. Things will go wrong. There will be problems, there will be mistakes. We're human, we all make mistakes. But if you've done everything you could and you prove that you've done everything you could, this really reduces your liability. So here myself, just being a CSA, I mentioned before how we're nationally background checked every 3 years. I have to pass that. Who am I employed by? Is my LinkedIn profile robust enough? So these are just beginning processes for vetting myself here. So this is a great time, whether you're in business a day, a year, 10 years, or 20 years, there's no better time than now to repair and reinvent if this is something that you have not either paid a lot of attention to or would like to go back to and make sure that your network is in the shape that it needs to be. Because remember what I said, the changes in our business environment, they're happening very, very rapidly. And I don't want any of you to be passed by or to miss the opportunities that you deserve. CSAs have put a lot of effort into becoming CSAs, a lot of caring into and compassion into the clients that they serve. Will show that. Make sure that everybody can make that as clear as possible. So with that, I have a little test here, but I won't put you through that. I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you so much for listening. And it is really important, and obviously you know I'm very passionate about this and I believe in it. I want to tell you I've done this for over 20 years and have found it to be very, very successful. Takes a little time setting up in the beginning, but after that it's very easy to maintain.